surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. And the presence of God watches over me wherever I am. God is.
Unity's prayer for protection.
The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. And the presence of God watches over me wherever I am. God is.
What an affirmation. Here we go again.
The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. And the presence of God watches over me wherever I am. God is.
One more time. Here it comes.
The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. And the presence of God watches over me wherever I am. God is. Wherever I am. God is. Wherever I am. God is.
Alright, so you know it must be an extra special morning. Brenda's not here in the sanctuary, but she is having, hopefully in this moment, a wonderful time. She's gathered with her family at their home in Cedar Ridge, and she and Roy are saying I do today. So let's just get started. Brenda edits the recording every week before she posts it on YouTube. So she'll get to see this right away. So let's go ahead and say congratulations! All right. Our blessings on their very special day today. Okay, so let's all just take a moment to settle in. Big old breath. Remember why we came here this morning. Okay. Just breathe with me now and big old mindful breath and relax into this beautiful day. Let's bring ourselves into alignment with the divine presence and with each other to speak our mission statement. We recognize and realize the overwhelming presence of divine love as the truth of all.
Be still, my soul, be still and know. I will make a quiet place within my life, and I will listen, Holy Spirit. I will listen. I will make a quiet place. I will make a quiet place. I will make a quiet place.
Please join with me in this quiet to know and feel the divine presence of oneness, the one life, the one power. It is the beauty, the wisdom, the joy of all life. It is unconditional love and all good. It is the infinite intelligence that creates and sustains all that is. And I call this divine presence God. All that God is, I am. And deep within my innermost being, I attune myself to this God consciousness. For that is truly who I am. And as this is true for me, this is true for you too. As we each align ourselves with the truth of our being. And I affirm that unconditional love shines itself uniquely, living itself as our unique life, expressing and conspiring for our highest good. I relax in this moment, knowing that this radiance, this divine light, is guiding and directing our every step. Guidance comes to each of us whenever we need it, and in a way we clearly discern and understand. We allow ourselves to radiate a new way that expresses love in peace, ease, joy, and harmony. In this awareness, we accept what is ours to do, feeling only goodwill, kindness, and love for all. Our essence radiates and shines, illuminating our life and the life of others. And resting in this truth, we trust the process. The requests of the prayer chest are already enfolded in this unconditional love that shines on each request. This radiance moves in and out of each request, guiding and directing to the highest and best outcome. God is in the midst of each request, energizing each request with wholeness and perfection, and the fullness of life is revealed. The service is blessed, and all that serve to create this beautiful experience today. For I know that each of us is the face of God, radiating love in all directions, in loving action. I know that this radiance is being given and received by each one here today. Sort of with great thankfulness for this word that is manifesting in expected and unexpected ways, that is the face of God in loving action. I know that this is the one life that lives as each of us. It is the truth of our being. And I release this word into the law, knowing it is already so. So in trust and expectancy, I let it be as we join together and declare, and so it is.
Get ready, my soul. I'm dying. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving to the deepest kind of love. To the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. 'Cause here I go, deeper, deeper, deeper than I've ever been before. Here I go. Closer, closer, closer to my sacred source. Here I go. Deeper, deeper, deeper than I've ever been before. Here I go. Closer, closer, closer to my sacred source. Get ready, my soul.
Good morning. If there is something on your mind, your heart, something that you feel is dimming that radiance that you are, please leave your concerns in the prayer chest down the stairs to the left, and the practitioner will be doing affirmative prayer on your behalf this week. Your life is already artful. Just waiting for you to make it art. It's Toni Morrison. And from Ernest Holmes, life is not just something to be endured, it is to be lived in joy, in a fullness without limit.
Well, our message this morning will be from Reverend Wendy Craig Purcell. And it is entitled Compassionate Communication. And as a primer to that, we have our next song here from Kate Wolfe. Kate Wolfe is a state treasurer of California, and she passed away in her 40s from leukemia. And that journey gave her many deep insights into life, including the one that we're about to experience right now.
Gentle warrior, with your heart like gold and a rainbow in your eyes. Brave companion, do you see the world shining
enjoyed exploring with you Bob Romet's book, Living Originally. And if you haven't purchased the book, I encourage you to do so. There are 5 other practices that we're not going into, practices that can be used in very special kinds of circumstances. Plus, there's some support material in the book and also online. I believe he's created some guided meditations around each of the practices as his gift. And so the practices we've been looking at are really a beautiful foundation for us in living our lives very much from the center out, from center to circumference, from the origin of our essence, if you will. And some of the practices, as we've learned, are ones that we are very personal, very inward practices, like the first 2, radical self-awareness, the practice of paying attention and being able to name what's going on inside of us. What are we feeling? And are we present to the moment at hand, really bringing in a very deliberate, conscious, radical way our attention in the present moment. And then we took a look at the idea of deep self-acceptance, that it's not enough just to be able to name what it is that is our inner experience as we're going through the stuff of life, but also to be able to accept inwardly what is so for us at that point in time. And sometimes that's more difficult than others, right? Sometimes what we're feeling is dark or heavy or sad or frightening. And to be able to know what that is, to be aware of it, and to accept that that's what's going on inside of us now, without adding anything more to it, without adding a story to it or a layer to it, so that we can experience it more directly and thereby be better equipped to be able to move through it. And then we looked at kind of that bridge practice, the practice of forgiveness, and the idea of unlimited forgiveness, really. And that forgiveness for each of us begins with a decision to forgive, that we're going to start on that path toward forgiveness. And when it's really very difficult, maybe something really, really terrible has happened to us, we may have to begin with the idea of I want to forgive. And then we go through that process of healing. That's not a light switch, it's much more like a dimmer. And then we looked last week, and you can get all of the lessons online on the YouTube channel if you missed any of them and want to go into them in full detail. But we looked at the idea of benevolence, of coming from a place in us of warm-heartedness, of coming from a place in us of wanting to extend goodwill. And that it's not so much about a benevolent feeling as it is about cultivating an approach of benevolence, and not just in the easy relationships, but in all of our relationships. And when we find that there's someone or something that is hard for us to approach with benevolence, then it doesn't excuse us from practicing where we can until we build a greater inner capacity to be able to extend that in ever-widening circles. And again, if you've been reading in the book or following along on Sunday mornings, these practices are not dependent about somebody else doing them with us. They're not dependent upon somebody else responding in a particular way because we have decided to take these practices up as a real way of being. That we do the practice for our own sake, for our own growth. Is it possible that others will change around us? Of course it is, but that's not the motivation. None of these practices is about trying to manipulate someone else's behavior. And so today we're looking at the idea of compassionate communication. Say that with me. Compassionate communication. Compassionate communication. And it's about both the speaking, the giving out of communication, and about the receiving of communication. Let me read something from this chapter from Bob. It's in relationship with others that we find our greatest joys and our greatest challenges. Think about that just for a moment. Would you not say that there's a lot of truth to that? That it's in our relationships that we find our greatest joy, but we probably also find our greatest challenge. When we think about it, the people that can probably hurt us the most are the people that we are the closest to. There's a direct tie there, right? It's in relationship with others that we find our greatest joys and our greatest challenges. In relationship with others, we most often fall into unconscious patterns of thought and behavior. It's in relationship with others we often find the most difficulty of sustaining our practice of awareness and benevolence. For these reasons, our relationships with others may offer us the greatest potential for transformation. Perhaps nothing impacts the quality of our life more than the quality of our relationships. And perhaps nothing impacts the quality of our relationships more than the quality of our communication. I think those last two sentences are very true. When we think about our life, when we think about the quality of our life, do we feel fulfilled? Do we feel happy? Are we satisfied? A lot of how we answer that question is directly tied to the quality of our relationships. And then if we really look at the quality of our relationships, we can't help but see that there's a definite link, a definite impact between the quality of our communication and the state of those relationships. Compassionate communication requires and includes speaking and listening, reading and writing. And I think those last two, even a little more so now, that it is so easy for us to blast our thoughts and our opinions and our words out to more and more people through the vehicle of social media, right? And I think we're seeing, and we're certainly hearing about it, a real lack of civility in social media itself, that there's a tendency of people to feel like they can hide behind that and just let it all out in anything but a compassionate way of communicating. This idea of compassionate communication, again, is important that we embrace from the standpoint that it's not dependent upon somebody else practicing it or not. We practice because of what we want to become. We practice because of the way we want to grow, the way we want to experience our lives. The core of the practice of compassionate communication, as Bob writes about it, and I would have to say I agree, is the idea conveyed in Buddhism of right speech. Of right speech. And that is not to imply that there is a concrete, literal set of words to say and ways to say them. It's not as black and white as that. Right speech is speech that supports spiritual practice and that leads to our growth and our transformation. And if you were to Google the words or do some research on the Buddhist teaching of right speech, you'd find a lot of different ways of describing this practice or this concept. Words that include such things as admonitions against lying or divisive speech or exaggeration or abusive speech and even idle chatter. And so Bob writes about it in a way that I first learned of this concept of right speech as basically three ideas. I'll say them once and then we'll unpack each of them. The ideas of asking ourselves as we get ready to speak, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And we're supposed to get a yes to all three. It's not pick and choose. Yeah. Some of them in some circumstances are easier than others, right? Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it true? That's simple enough, isn't it? I mean, is there any one of us in this room or listening online that wasn't taught that we are expected to tell the truth? Of course, we're taught, we're expected to tell the truth, to not lie. So is it true before we speak, before we write, we ask ourselves, is what I'm saying, what I'm writing, true? Do I have all the facts? Can I even speak about it in an informed and intelligent way? And when we find that, yes, we think that what we're about to say is true, but then we find out later on that, oh, wait a minute, maybe I didn't have all the facts, or maybe I missed something here, then we are willing to go back. We are willing to go back and to correct it. If we find ourselves saying something we know is not true, it's important to examine our motives. Why is it that in a conversation, in a relationship, we might not tell the truth? See, in order to grow in our skillfulness in compassionate communication, it isn't always about doing it right. Sometimes we can learn an awful lot when we realize we've just messed up. When we realize, wait a minute, I just spun something that wasn't true here. And then to stop and try to understand of ourselves, what was my motivation for doing that? Why did I choose not to tell the truth? And an honest inquiry into that question of why can be very instructive in helping us to see and understand how we operate in our relationships. Are we afraid to tell the truth? Is there a consequence we don't want to deal with? Are we ashamed? Are we embarrassed? I'll share a personal story here, but as I was working on this and thinking about the personal story, I was also thinking about just what's going on in our culture and has been for quite a number of years now. We keep hearing about the big lie, right? Right? Can you imagine if not just each of us individually, but we were all committed to being truthful? Where would we be right now, not just as individuals, but where would we be as a country? I think we would be in a very different place. And so while the practice of these teachings is not dependent upon whether other people are doing them or not, it's not dependent upon that. We choose to practice because of the growth that we want to experience and the transformation we want to experience. However, to the larger extent or the greater extent that the collective we begin to practice, we really will be about healing our world with love. So I couldn't help, as I was putting this together and thinking about, is it true? And what is the motivation for lying? I don't know if any of you have stories like this, like maybe the very first time you knew you told a lie and you got caught. Anybody feel brave enough to just nod your head? I'm not going to ask you to reveal, but you know, the very first time you knew you told a lie and you got caught. Mine was all of, I think, 8 or 9 years old. I remember this vividly because of the consequences. For whatever ridiculous reason, I decided I wanted to cut a lock of my hair. Can't remember why, but instead of picking a place like in the back of your head, I picked something like right in the front, and my hair was very long, and I cut a big lock of my hair. And I remember, I did this at school, I remember coming home and my mother asked me, what did you do? How'd that happen? And I said, a boy next to me cut my hair. And she said, really? And somewhere along the line, I'm not a good liar, and I must have just told her the truth. And I was raised in kind of a generation, wait till your father gets home. Anybody else relate to that? So, you know, mom had her consequences, but it was worse waiting until my dad got home. And so it was confession time, tell dad, and my dad gave me choices of my consequences. This is probably why I remember it so vividly. He said, you need to pick one of 3 punishments. And the punishments were these, in, I don't remember what order, but first was, you will have to go to school. Now remember, I'm about 8 or 9 years old as a little girl, and wear your hair in braids for 2 weeks. I was not gonna look like Heidi. So that was not gonna be a choice. The other was I had to wear a sign around my neck. Yeah, I know that was not the best parenting technique, sorry Dad. I'm a liar. Yeah, that's not, but I never forgot it. Or a spanking. God chose the spanking. Now, to this day, if somebody's going to give me bad news, or if there's new, give me the bad news first. I want to get it behind me. Let me deal with it quickly. But as an adult, I can look back and say, and the spanking hurt, but as an adult, I can look back and say, why did I lie? 2 reasons. I was embarrassed. It was a dumb thing to do. And I was afraid I was going to get punished. Guess what? I did, right? So there's, my point being, whatever it is, whatever we remember as a kid or are doing today, when we lie in a relationship, we're trying to protect ourselves usually or someone. And in this practice of right speech, we are not to lie. Let me read an example that Bob gives, and you might find yourself arguing with this example, but try not to get hung up on the example and try to look at what is the deeper revelatory teaching in being willing to look at what he's describing. So he says, for example, if I tell my friend I like her new car, when I really don't, I could dismiss this as simply being polite or nice, right? What do we call those? White lies usually, right? If I'm really honest with myself, I might see I fear speaking honestly because I'm afraid if I do, she may discontinue our friendship, or she will judge me as unkind or disloyal. I can then explore what's behind the fear, perhaps a feeling of loneliness or of shame. This then gives me an opportunity to see how I maintain all of my relationships. Do I believe it's not safe to tell the truth? Do I believe it's not safe to tell the truth? Do I believe I'm responsible for someone else's feelings? Those 2 can be biggies. Do I believe it's not safe to tell the truth? Do I believe I'm responsible for someone else's feelings? Am I truly honest in my relationships, or are they based on a facade? If we really look at those questions, they point to some real deep self-examination, and that's why they can be very much like a mirror to ourselves. When we are willing to ask those questions, what is it that's behind my lying or feeling like I have to, I can't say what I'm really thinking or what I'm really feeling when asked to do so. And so it requires, I think, that pushing that pause button and asking more deeply of ourselves what's going on here. Now, it does not mean that we speak with brutal honesty. The very next question, is it true? What was the next one? Is it kind? And remember I said, it's not we get to pick and choose. It's not an either or, it's an all. So is it true? Is it kind? And where the real growth comes for us, when we do want to speak our truth about something or feel the need to speak our truth about something, to begin to become more skillful in doing so in a kind way. And unless we have a lot of that modeled to us growing up or around us, we may have some catch-up work to do, to learn how to be true in delivering a difficult message, but also being kind in the delivery of that message. And the kindness is not about being nice or polite, and I'm all for being nice, and I'm all for courtesy, and I'm all for being polite. Kind is deeper than that. Kind reaches into our heart. Kindness has to do with approaching whatever it is we're going to speak about with very much an open heart, a heart that cares about how what we are about to say lands on the other person. Not that we can be responsible that it will land in exactly the way that we want it to, but we go out of our way to approach it with kindness. So the skill building is not, is it kind or is it true or is it kind? The skill building is it true and is it kind? And that may take some practice and time to do, and also to learn how to do, and also time in a conversation. I don't have the time to share the example here, but just this weekend, some of you know my mother is now living with John and me and with Jennifer, and there's all sorts of things that come up as we get older, and my mom is soon to be 88 and has lots and lots and lots of doctor's appointments and lots of things that need time and care and attention, a lot more than she anticipated, a lot more than I anticipated when she first came to be with us. And I don't know how it is for you, but when I have a lot of demands on me and feel really stretched thin of time, sometimes I don't always show up with the greatest patience that I would like to. Any of you relate to that? So when it's like, you do your best, and so without going into the details of the what, we have to have an honest conversation. And a true conversation about what was and is going on, but also to be kind with each other in the delivery of both giving the message and receiving the message. You can't do that in a text, you can't do it in an email, and you can't do it when you're watching your watch. Those things not only take the skill and the courage and authenticity and vulnerability to speak, but it also takes time to have those conversations. So compassionate communication, is it true? Is it kind? And the last one, which sometimes is the real kicker, at least growing up in the household I did, where there was a lot of talking, and not just me. A lot of talk. Is it necessary? Have you ever been around people who do not know how to not talk? Okay, boy, that was a pretty verbal murmur. I don't know who came to your mind, but you all apparently have someone. How quiet would the world become really if we had to hold ourselves to 3 yeses? Is it true? Yes. Is it kind? Yes. Is it necessary? Yes. It might become a very, very quiet world, right? So, is it necessary? And that also speaks to motivation. What is my reason for speaking? Is it to connect? Is it to heal a relationship? Like a difficult conversation I had with my mom, it was not to blame or to shame, but to try to connect. Is it or are we speaking because we need to build up our ego? Only you know what's going on inside of you. And you won't know unless you pause to ask the question, is it necessary? What is my motivation for speaking in the way that I'm about to? And so there's just the one half, right, of the speaking, but the other half is the listening. The other half is the listening. And to me, compassionate listening, the way that we can tell that we've moved into that is, how safe do people feel around us to really open up? How safe? And think about the people that you're closest to. Think about also people that you have a close working relationship with. How safe are you for people to come to you, especially with difficult information? As a parent, I remember a real powerful bit of information I got. I don't remember where or how I got it, but it was the idea that as a parent, you want to always be an askable parent, meaning that you are the kind of parent that no matter what your kid is going through or what question they have, whether it's sex or drugs or whatever it might be, that they feel that they can come to you and they can ask you or talk to you about something, and not have your first response be to problem solve or to fix it or to correct, but to be a safe place for that child to be heard. Same is true for us, not just if we're raising kids, but in our primary relationships, in our work relationships. Are we a safe place to come to? There are so many levels of the way that we can listen. We can listen at the very surface level where we're just listening. It looks like we're listening because we're not interrupting, but what we're really doing is we're thinking about what we're going to say next, right? That's really not listening. There's a level of listening where we're taking in information, and we're not interrupting, we're taking in information, but it's really just at the intellectual level. We don't really open ourselves to be willing to be changed by what we might be hearing. And then there's a much deeper level of listening, a level of listening in which we are taking in what the other is trying to communicate in such a way that we are willing to be changed by it, that we are willing to hear it. There's a difference between hearing and listening, right? Listening implies understanding, and understanding is active, it's not passive. Hearing can be passive. Think about hearing somebody speak in a foreign language. You hear them, right? But if it's not your language that they're speaking, do you understand what it is they're saying? No, you hear them. Listening implies being able to understand. So let me close with a thought that I think is a powerful way of looking at the idea of compassionate communication as it relates to listening. And that is this idea: to speak in such a way that others will want to listen, and to listen in such a way that others will want to speak. To speak in such a way that others will want to listen, and to listen in such a way that others will want to speak. Namaste.
God, you are every mountain. God, you are every ocean. God, you are every canyon, every inch of earth and sky. God, you are every morning. God, you are every midnight. God, you are every moment, every second of my life. Everything I see, everything I do, everything I am is you. Everything above, everything below, everything I know is you. God, you are every sunrise. God, you are every moonglow. God, you are every starshine, every inch of earth and sky. God, you are every springtime. God, you are every snowfall. God, you are every season, every second of my life. Everything I see, everything I do, everything I am is you. Everything above, everything below, everything I know is you. 'Cause you are the very breath I breathe, and your perfect love created me. Everything I see, everything I do, everything I am is you. Everything above, everything below, everything I know is you. Everything I see, everything I do, everything I am is you. Everything above, everything below, everything I know is you. Everything I see, everything I do, everything I am is you. Everything above, everything below, everything I know is you.
Okay, now is our time to consciously participate in the law of circulation. So if the ushers will come forward now, if you'll just take your gift in your hand. And know with me that from the abundance that I receive, I gratefully participate in the law of circulation, knowing that as I have received, I give, for that receiving from the abundance of the universe is always available. And our affirmation, I am united with the abundance of God energy. I feel my worth.
I am the light of the world. That is my only function. That is what I can be.
From A Course in Miracles.
I am the light of the world. That is my only function. That is what I can feel. I am the light of the world. That is my only function. That is what I can feel. I am the light of the world. That is my only function. That is what I am here.
And as this abundance is received, it goes forth, enhancing our community and our world. And so it is.
So now, let's take one last chance to charge our batteries for the week and claim our good. Ready? Today I recognize my inner light. Today I choose to radiate that light out into the world. Today I direct my light to illuminate others. Today is my day to shine, and so it is.
I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place